Attica was fear.
There was 70% black and brown. Prisoners, all white guards. What could go wrong?
Grab the guards, grab the keys.
All hell broke loose.
Tell me this, are these primarily blacks?
Guys were complaining about the basic things like toothpaste. A roll of toilet paper lasts you a month.
The inmates were considered like animals.
They beat you up in your cell, and then they take you to segregation, and sometimes you don't come back.
Have the inmates made any demands?
There are all kinds of demands for change in the whole world.
This had to be mediated, otherwise it was going to end in disaster. They wanted to use those weapons.
Put your hands in the air, and you will not be harmed.
You will not be harmed. You will not be harmed. But that was bullshit.
They want to kill us.
We are men.
He was waking up America.
Somebody had to take a stand.
Amazing film. One of the things that I immediately noticed was that when highlighting the prisoners and their negotiations, they were negotiating in good faith. They weren't trying to get any time taken off their sentences. They weren't trying to finagle anything as far as what they had done as their crimes. They just wanted better conditions. When you flip that and you look at the conversations that the governor and Nixon were having and things like the officer walking out and saying white power. Can you talk to me about the dynamic of showing that the supposed criminals in this case were acting, even under these circumstances, in better faith than our leaders were throughout this entire process?
I think one of the things that's really interesting to me about that dynamic that you observed in the film is how necessary it was for the state, as embodied in Richard Nixon and Nelson Rockefeller, to kind of make this a story about unruly, criminalized Blackness, right? What you hear from the prisoners in those days in D-Yard is that, you know, for whatever kind of stratifications they may have had within the prison, as someone said, to survive, when they were in D-Yard, they coalesced around a political identity of being prisoners. And you hear the voices of not only the Black prisoners, but white prisoners, Puerto Rican prisoners as well, saying that we are all treated horribly and that we all recognize in this moment an opportunity to seek some of the changes that we want to see in the prison, right? But when you hear Rockefeller and Nixon on this call, the word that I use is thirsty. That's the only thing I can describe Nixon's tone when he so badly wants this to be a story about, as he says, the Blacks, right? And to my mind, as we show that, you know, we're in this moment of law and order, this is what the wave that Nixon ultimately rides into the White House. And what that was Nixon making a promise to white voters saying, I will get these Blacks in line. I know that all of this unruly looking Blackness out in the streets terrifies you. And if you elect me, I will bring order to all of this disorderly Blackness. And so what I hear in that phone call is them trying to create an alternate narrative from the story that the prisoners were telling. And thank God they had the temerity to ask the cameras in, that says what happened on the 13th is justified because we are doing this in the name of restoring order to this criminalized, dangerous Blackness. And that is the story that they were trying to tell about what happened there during those 5 days.
I think also, you know, the prisoners' agenda was right out front. You know, they had no hidden agenda. You know, they were saying what they wanted. They wanted, you know, amnesty and you know, better food and some other things. But they were dealing with politicians finally. And they were dealing with, in many ways, very skilled politicians in that Rockefeller has risen to be the governor of New York. Richard Nixon, throughout all odds, has become president of the United States. And so they're dealing with politicians, and the politicians have other agendas, and their agendas were not straightforward. And there's no way that the prisoners could understand that or know that. What their agendas was. You know, Rockefeller wanted to be president, and he wanted to be seen in a different by the Republican Party. Richard Nixon wanted law and order, and to he was elected on a law and order slate, and he wanted to deliver. He did, you know, as he says, we just can't have this kind of anarchy. So I think that, you know, the prisoners inside were playing one game, you know, and the politicians, Nixon and Rockefeller, even Russell Oswald on the other side, were playing a different game.
Jill Monroe, again. So my question is, with so many stories to tell within this, was there a story that initially, when you began the project, putting it together, you thought would be included in the film that did not make it to the final project?
Traci, that's your...
Sure. I mean, you know, there's always, this is a story that really honestly could be a multi-part series, right? And so there's always things that you know, wish that you had time for, and, you know, little asides and moments that are really exciting, you know, but I think ultimately we had to focus on telling the most compelling, honest, incisive version of the story that we were telling, which is the story of these 5 days, using the most powerful and compelling material that we had at hand in the interviews and the archival. And so sure, there's always, you know, a million things that like shoulda, coulda, woulda, I wish we had more time for, but ultimately we just had to focus on the story that we were telling and the best possible way to tell it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were really fortunate in working, you know, with Showtime that you know, we had a budget that we could work with, and you know, we were able to stretch out the time because of COVID, but we were able to do it, and we made the film we wanted to make. You know, I don't sit there and think about things that we could have included or didn't include. You know, and if you talk to me about it, you would think I was crazy. You know, because it's like, you know, just what, oh, you know, I wish we could have made that shot longer, or I wish the music came in 1 second earlier than it did. But it's not, you know, any big thing. I mean, we had time to think about the film. You know, I've learned because I've made a few films that you know, we want to really put money into editing, to have enough time to edit the film and make the film we want to make, you know, and so that we don't have regrets, because the film is a document. It's now a lasting document. It's history, and we can't go back and change it. And so we want to make it, you know, as perfect as we possibly can. And I'm not saying it's a perfect film, but it's the best that we could do.